Hello and welcome back once again to CBR MTG. My name is Angus Mackay and I'm joined here by Frank Karamarudis.
Hey.
And we are playing Modern tonight with Peter Aaron on Red White Enduring Ideal versus Harrison Hooper on Bug Tezzerator. We've had Tezzerator on the channel before playing at CanCon, but that was a slightly different list. That was a UB list. This is a little bit of bug action. So with Harrison's Tezzerator list, and he only recently ran green, but this is like giving yourself a little bit more like mid-range capability. So now Harrison has access to Abrupt Decay and
Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, Maelstrom Pulse, and sort of giving up on the lock pieces such as Trinisphere and Chalice of the Void. Just running through the Frank, would you like to run through the main board for Harrison's deck?
Yeah, well, it looks like you've got 2 Ensnaring Bridges, 4 Mishra's Baubles, a Mox Opal, a Nihil Spellbomb, 4 Pentad Prisms, a Pithing Needle, a Ratchet Bomb, a Sword of the Meek, 3 Thopter Founders, which are interesting numbers. 1 Time Sieve, 2 Welding Jars, and a Witchbane Orb. The sorceries are 4 Serum Visions and a Maelstrom Pulse, and then 21 lands of various flavors, including 1 Inventor's Fair, and that's the only land to note, and then 3 Abrupt Decays and 2 Fatal Pushes, as well as 4 War Inventions and 3 Tezzerator, Agent of Bolas, to add the rest of the deck. So
definitely some weird numbers, but I can say for sure that in speaking to Harrison after this match, the Mox Opal, the one of Mox Opal was a budget consideration, which is fine. He's just waiting to retrieve his Mopals, but he's looking very forward to future Mopals. And apparently Sword of the Meek is very hard to get nowadays, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So unable to get the full Sword of the Meek. But if it was any deck, I mean, it's good that it's this sort of style deck to have a bunch of one-offs, because I mean, Whir of Invention is going to do a lot of work in this match.
Yeah, this is kind of a very interesting child of Lantern Control and the more traditional like Tezzerator decks that we've seen, and he's playing a strong toolbox version with some like interesting choices, and I think he's ready for any situation.
Yeah, and we'll see how ready he is when he comes up to the pre-game action of turn 0 Leyline of Sanctity, a classic turn 0 play from a enchantment-based Enduring Ideal deck that Peter's brought to the table.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Enduring Ideal is one of those cards that we've seen a few times throughout Modern, and it often has kind of a lot of fringe capabilities, but we often see it as a white-blue deck, and that's just because you have things like Dovescape. But what Enduring Ideals is, it costs 5 white for a sorcery, and it says search your library for an enchantment card and put it into the battlefield, into play. Then shuffle your library. And it has Epic, which means that once he casts that, he cannot cast anything else for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And the other kind of main thing about this kind of deck is that it is also called a like pillow fort kind of deck. It is a deck that stops your opponent from attacking, and it eventually wins just because your opponent can't do anything.
Speaking of which, Peter softly telling his opponent that, yes, you'll actually have to pay 2 to crack that fetch, which I don't think Harrison was really planning for. So, I mean, Suppression Field, pretty good card.
Yeah. It's also something that feels a little bit underplayed in Modern right now, because there are so many activated abilities, especially with how important fetches are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's turning into a lot more of a fetch land driven format. I mean, obviously it has style, but the being able to use those activated abilities is really, really stifled by having to pay 2 for them. It's kind of like like a build your own Richardson port, or Tabernacle or something like that, where you're just having to pay extra for things that you didn't want to have to pay extra for.
Yeah, I mean, also costing 2 is something that before actually like giving the card a really good look, I didn't realize. I thought it was 3 mana at least. And just doing it on 2 is wild. So
just 1 and a white.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a I mean, Harrison can set up his combo now, but it's not going to be as enticing as he's used to, because for anyone who doesn't know, the sort of the make Thopter Foundry combo is Thopter Foundry says sacrifice an artifact, gain 1 life, make a 1/1 blue Thopter creature token, put onto the battlefield, and then sort of the make says if it's in the graveyard and a 1/1 enters the battlefield, you can it might be 1 power, 1 toughness, or whatever, but basically the Thopter enters, the sort of the meek sees it, and then attaches itself from the graveyard to the Thopter. So it's essentially pay 1, gain 1 life, make a Thopter, which is a very, very neat combo to have in the sort of prison-y style shell that Harrison's repping today. But when you're paying 3 for it, it's kind of not as good with the suppression field out. It makes it a little bit more painful.
Not as enticing at all. And
yeah, absolutely.
He's designed his deck to be very, very grindy and lock down his opponent through things like Ensnaring Bridge and just removal and answers. And it looks like Peter's very excited for some Ruined Halo. Just fun.
Getting some of that hand cam action, showing off those 2 Ruined Halos in Peter Owen's hand. He'll be able to gain protection from 2 cards of his choice, and like, I mean, Hazaret, getting a lot of value out of that. Harrison is running out of options when it comes to win cons, because I mean, theoretically, you could put Ruined Halo on Thopter token, right?
Yeah, and he could also put it on Tezzerator, which gives Harrison's deck just a ton of reach. And if he takes those 2 options out, it's just kind of bad for Harrison, just in general. Another thing that I was looking over Peter's list, and we should actually probably read it out eventually, but it doesn't have any Starfield of Nyx, which feels like an interesting kind of lack of inclusion, because Starfield of Nyx is 4 and a white for an enchantment, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as you control 5 or more enchantments, each other non-aura enchantment you control is a creature in addition to its other types, and has a base power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. And that feels like a very good addition to the deck. So I'm kind of surprised that we aren't seeing that.
Yeah, especially because you can power it out so quickly. I mean, I can even see it in this list if you're playing like Faithless Looting, because Peter is not playing Chalice. Like he can play 1-drops if he wants, and if he can loop through his deck with Faithless Looting, it might actually like give it a little bit more protection from variance, which is what you see with a lot of these red-white prison style decks.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just interesting that he has, I guess, 2 Form of the Dragons, which is a pretty solid kind of win condition. But if he ends up ever getting Enduring Ideal out, that same turn, he's cost 7 mana. He probably has enough enchantments that he can just swing for lethal that turn.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess...
Yeah. Go on.
I guess maybe some like notice for if he makes it a creature, if he makes these things creatures, like they become vulnerable to removal spells, might be a reason for interest, but for not including it. But he also does have the one that makes them, oh god, I'm so bad with names. Greater Oromancy? Is that the one that gives them all Shroud?
Shroud, yeah, Greater Oromancy.
Yeah. That's in the sideboard, but it feels like that would be pretty relevant as well.
Yeah, this is the 1 and a white. Other enchantments you control have Shroud. Enchanted creatures you control have Shroud. Now, I mean, it's good. You probably put it in the sideboard if you were planning on playing that Starfield of Nyx style deck, because you don't want to have your you don't want to have your Leyline Fatal pushed or whatever. which is understandable. But I think he's just gearing up to not get any. He's just not getting hit with any enchantment hate pre-board, which is probably reasonable. I mean, there's not a whole lot that gets rid of enchantments main board, so could be good.
Yeah, fair. I guess it's pretty strong to most of the field in thinking about it. I guess you have like in humans you have freebooter or meddling mage. In Mardu you have essentially nothing besides discard. In Jund, they have Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay.
Yeah. I mean, Jund is probably the most well-equipped, but Harrison does have some aspects of Jund in his list with the Maelstrom Pulse and the Abrupt Decay, so not completely impossible for him to get rid of some of these cards, but you definitely get rid of the enchantments with those stuff anyway, but We'll see how he goes from here. We have seen the first Rune Tailor coming down from Peter Owen's side, naming Tezzerator Agent of Bolus. Now, this is they know each other pretty well, and they know each other's decks pretty well. So you probably named that in the dark anyway, seeing how much you've seen from Harrison. But as you mentioned before, you get a whole lot of reach from Agent of Bolus. Says his -4 is target player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is twice the number of artifacts you control. So, I mean, it doesn't exactly matter in this instance because of the Leyline of Sanctity, but Peter does know that Harrison's playing some main deck enchantment destruction, so it's not completely impossible for him to get rid of the Leyline of Sanctity, Windmill Slam the Jace, tick it up once and then down tick it for 4 to win the game, because at the moment it's hitting him for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so at least 14 damage, which is pretty close to lethal.
Yeah.
Speak of the devil.
I mean, right now I think it's a pretty solid thing that Tezzerator can just get him some card advantage. I mean, the suppression field is kind of rough, for sure. But
yeah,
I mean, he's not doing anything else. Peter's sitting there with his hands together, just kind of waiting.
Doing what Prison does best, which is nothing.
They're in it for a long game. The other thing is Harrison's actually been playing an Ensnaring Bridge, right? So
yeah,
we saw that Peter's monkey beats, they kind of were halted very, very quickly. But that's also not great for Harrison if he can manage to
make some 5/5s.
Yeah, deal with just what Peter has going on. Because what is that thing on the edge? Is that the Enduring Ideal?
No, it's not Enduring Ideal. I'm not 100% sure what it is, unfortunately. Just a little bit out of view. Could be the second Rune.
I think he has the Rune Halo in hand.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that makes it pretty easy. The Rune Tailor not very good against 5/5s because of they'll each have a different name, so won't be able to gain protection from them very easily. But I mean,
the Ensnaring Bridge is a little bit bad for Harrison. His own, it'd be his own thing.
Oh, no. Yeah, but he can. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he chose to play Abrupt Decay as well, is he could just like pop Abrupt Decay with pop Ensnaring Bridge with his own Abrupt Decay, or sacrifice it with Thopter Foundry, and then just start going nuts. He's not really able to do that as well because of the situation that has come across him, where he's having to pay so much for his activated abilities and not being able to get over the Ensnaring Bridge. But it might not be the end. It might not be the end. You could still pay 3 to make 1 Thopter.
This is kind of a really good showcase for how much of just a wild format Modern is. This is like the Wild West. You have no idea what you're going to see. And I would not have expected to do some commentary on Red, White, Enduring Ideals and Bug Tezzerator before you sat me down and asked. So, yeah, it's
been a wild ride.
An odd combination. And, I mean, it's such an interesting format in that you get so much benefit from having experience and understanding matchups like this. But this is also a matchup that, I could go the next year and a half and never play against an Enduring Ideal deck, and that wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't I don't think I've ever played against him during Ideal, but I mean, what's it called? It's like Sun and Moon. There's like a Sun and Moon control. It's like not um completely unknown where you're playing just turn one. Let's just like a turn one Blood Moon deck, and then the rest are prison pieces. So it's like not completely out of the realms of possibility, but still, what we're seeing now is once in a lifetime. I think.
Have you played against that deck?
This Enduring Ideals
No,
deck?
the Moon and Sun.
Oh, Sun and Moon. I have played against it online, but never in paper. But it hits on the same axis essentially. Like you're trying to cheat out stuff with fast mana, and then it's just mono lock pieces. Like it's just free win Blood Moon. You know, it's but it doesn't have the power of free win red. So I don't know. It's definitely a fringe deck.
It is.
It's solid tier 3.
It is very interesting that there is such a like demographic in the modern community that just love prison decks, and a lot of it is based on the back of Blood Moon. And we haven't seen it in Peter's deck yet, but like he definitely does play a certain number of Blood Moon because it just steals games.
Yeah, exactly, and it takes a certain type of person as well to to play those types of Blood Moon decks, and like kudos to them. Like these are the type of people who believe that Magic is a zero-sum format, where if I'm having more fun, you must be having less fun, or if you're having less fun, I must be having more fun. So it's definitely a mentality that exists in the community. Also, probably one that goes hand in hand with people who play Whitewater Basics.
Yeah, look.
It's the perfect deck. It's synergizing well, even outside of playstyle, even just in art.
I feel like it's just kind of the people who like these kind of decks. You know, they hated the phrase "sharing is caring" because they don't want to share any of the fun. It's not something that other people can enjoy. But it's also incredibly satisfying to win against these kind of decks. So that's another kind of fun aspect of the game, right?
And Harrison might be tasting that victory anytime soon, because I mean we're still chipping in with the Thopters, and I mean there's a Ratchet Bomb that we forgot to mention, but it's sticking up, and it's sticking up slowly. We could just get rid of the Leyline of Sanctity in another 2 turns, or we could get rid of the you'd have to get rid of the Rune Tailor and the Leyline of Sanctity. So maybe the line is just better to take the suppression field and then just go ham from there.
Well, I think that might not be ideal because Ratchet Bomb hits things with the same cost, and most of the things on Harrison's side of the field ends up being 2 as well.
Of course.
The combo is both 2, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's 2 and 3. I don't know how much.
I'm pretty sure. I think I could possibly agree that they're both 2, but you can save one of them. Like you only have to save the Thopter Foundry. So you save it with the welding jar and then exploit everything else.
Yes.
And then it doesn't matter if the thing is in the bin, because you can just sacrifice the ensnaring bridge and then go from there. But I mean, not that it matters too much now, because of this ghostly prison. It's going to be even harder to explode even harder to get it go wide. So we'll just have to wait and see. Well, it looks like he's just going to explode it on 2. We'll see if he remembers to weld away. All right, looks like we're saving the welding jar.
Peter's not actually at 14 though, right?
No, he's definitely lost some life since. So maybe he's on 10 life, something similar. Yeah, maybe 10 or 12 life. But
darn small dice.
Yeah, darn small dice. That's why we like to use the big dice.
They're so pretty.
CBR MTG. It's definitely a. We're seeing the power of Abrupt Decay. Not being able to hit the Leyline of Sanctity, unfortunately, as it is a 4 mana, but you can hit the Ghostly Prison and start to chip in for a bit of damage.
Does Harrison have any? I don't think so, but he doesn't have anything like Academy Ruin or any utility lands that might help him get it back from the graveyard, the Ratchet Bomb?
No, I don't think he's playing Buried Ruin which is the modern legal version of Academy Ruins.
Academy Ruins is legal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is
legendary.
too, of course. Oh, so strong. Yeah, unfortunately, Harrison's side, I think it's quite possible because you have to play 3 colors now. It's like a little bit awkward with your mana base, especially because he's playing. I mean, we've seen 4 basics on Harrison's side so far, and I think there's still some to be left over. So 3 islands, 1 swamp, 1 forest. So at least 5 basic lands, but
It's Oblivion Ring.
that's a lot.
Sorry,
that's a lot to be playing. What's that? Oh, it's an Oblivion Ring.
It took me so long. I kept staring at the art, and it's the old Oblivion Ring.
That is an old Oblivion Ring, one that I could not even recognize now, even if you said it. But yeah, it definitely seems like a bit of a misplay, unfortunately, from Harrison's side to not sack the Thopter Foundry, because we'd still be able to start getting in some value. But look, Harrison might have other plans. Like we'll see what he has on top of his library, which is going to be a Pentad Prism. Something that could be really good in this deck as well as Ancient. I'm not 100% sure if he's playing it, but I guess that's like pretty risky as well, because some of your artifacts are not monocolored. But
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there's definitely a blue-black Tezzerator deck that doesn't rely on the Sword of the Meek combo, that it plays more like Lantern Control. I think Harrison just really enjoys the idea of making some like little flyers. So
yeah, for sure.
That's totally fine. I also think he might have wanted to, so like Ghostly Prison is fine to some degree. I think he might have wanted to get rid of the Ensnaring Bridge, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that he could start going with Tezzerator to make those big 5/5s. Again,
he wouldn't have had to worry about it too much with the Thopter Foundry, because he would have been able to. Oh, this is going to make it expensive. This is a Sphere of Safety, a expensive. Let me see. Let me pull it up. It's a 5 mana
that says,
"Go on."
You creatures your opponent control cannot attack you unless they pay 1 for each enchantment you control. So right now X is 4.
Yeah.
So each creature has to be paid for 4. Which also, because Harrison doesn't now have any cards in his hand, makes that a little bit rougher for him.
And that number's just going to keep going up. I mean, usually, this is the type of thing that Peter's wanting to sort of try and establish, is that like it's like Ghostly Prison, Ruined Halo, Ghostly Prison, and then Sphere of Safety, and then it's like impossible for you to attack, and then he can slow roll out with Form with the Dragon, ensuring that he won't be able to get any damage dealt to him.
Is this second Ruined Halo also on Tezzerator? Do you know?
Yeah, it's back on Tezzerator.
Okay. I mean,
could be interesting considering you can name Thopter. So perhaps Peter doesn't realize that you can name Thopter. I mean, I assume you name Thopter, right? It just says you can name any card and you have protection from that card. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it right now, because it is a token. He might not be able to.
Yeah, right. It definitely says card name, but if tokens are anyway. YouTube comments. Let us know in the chat below. I'm sure we'll get inundated with the helpful advice from the YouTube comments. It looks like Harrison's forgot his Sword of the Meek trigger, which, I mean, this is like semi-casual. This is our like weekly Friday nights, but Peter and Harrison have played a couple of times together, and at the start of the game, Peter said, "I'm not going to let you miss any triggers." And which he's doing now is enforcing that rule, because I mean it seems spiky, but it's like in tournament play, like these situations will come up, and Harrison will have to sort of deal with that. Fortunately for Harrison, like it's not actually a huge issue if he forgets this trigger, because he can still sack the Pentad Prism if once it has no counters on it. He can sack the Mox Opal in a pinch as well, like just to get the combo running again, because you only have to sacrifice any non-token artifact, and that should be fine.
I mean, I've played Harrison a few times, and he is a little bit loose on his triggers, so I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing for Peter to... Ooh, look at the monkey tribal. I don't think it's the worst thing for him to be a little bit harsher in enforcing that, because...
Yeah, for sure.
You know, following the rules of the game is kind of important.
Yeah. We have a little bit of a delay in the life totals up the top, but Harrison's definitely on 14, but I'm pretty sure Peter's starting to lose a bunch of life. I think he's on 2 life at the moment.
Oh,
so not the 14 as the top would suggest.
I was looking, and he has the Watery Grave. Did he pay mana for the Watery Grave? He wanted to do it twice, I guess.
Yeah, it looks like he's just taking up as much time as he can while Sphere of Safety isn't here, so he might just activate it again.
I mean, Sphere of Safety. So Sphere of Safety is here. Is the
problem.
I would.
Yeah, okay, that's right. I mean, it blocks.
it blocks, but also he doesn't need them, and that life might be relevant.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Also, the Thopter that is attached to the Sword of the Meek is actually lethal in the air, so all he has to do is pay 5 for that one. Simian Spirit Guides can't block. Peter Owens, beside the food that he just ate, was empty-handed, so he would be able to just pay the life for the Sphere of Safety and just go nuts. But he might not have seen the line yet. He might just be excited to be making Thopters.
So it's paying mana, and yeah, yeah, I think he's just really excited to attack.
Can you blame him? Yeah, gotta make a million Thopters.
What is the 5?
Yeah.
What was? Wait, can Simian Spirit Guide not block?
No, I don't think so. I think Peter Owen is saving Harrison the trouble of telling him the Sphere of Safety by just saying, "I'm just gonna scoop because I'm pretty dead here."
Yeah.
So it looks like Harrison tried to swing in the air with 5 Thopter tokens, which I've replaced for him so graciously with 20 Thopter tokens that I have in my bag. But
what a nice host.
Exactly. I'm gonna have to go out and purchase some tokens, I think, so we're always stocked and ready to go. It looks like Harrison tried to swing in and Peter just forgot the Sphere of Safety, but unfortunately that's not a thing that you can forget. So I mean, maybe Peter should take a
as an experienced just friend of GRVs, GRV advocate, and just
you're a GRV advocate.
Yeah, that would definitely not be good. So yeah, Peter,
don't do the thing.
Remember a little bit of your own medicine and remember your triggers, my dude. So it looks like Harrison, for his sideboard, has 1 Abrupt Decay, 1 Batter Skull, 1 Battle at the Bridge, 2 Damping Sphere, 1 Dismember, 1 Emrakul, 1 Gliss of the Traitor, 1 Herald of Anguish, 1 Maelstrom Pulse, 1 Padim, Console of Innovation, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Polymorph, and 1 Relic of Virginitas. This is quite a sideboard. Who needs anything other than singletons, I guess?
With everything being a 1-of except Dampening Sphere, Harrison's really trying his very hardest to utilize that toolbox strategy that War of Invention gives him. But
well,
God, it's pretty wild.
I was gonna say,
I mean,
it's pretty interesting that he also has a polymorph package and 1 polymorph.
Just in case.
Well,
just in case.
Yeah, I guess, like, you know, you can naturally draw Emrakul, or you could polymorph it. The other problem with polymorph is that if he brings in multiple toolbox creatures, polymorph is much more
so much worse. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you probably don't bring it in on the control matchup anyway because high. So, like, Padeem would come in against control, I suppose, or even Jund sort of style decks. So, if you're not bringing in Padeem, you can bring in Emrakul. If you're not bringing in Glisser, you can bring in Emrakul, and then you just polymorph from there. But this is definitely a pet card of Harrison's old polymorph Emrakul combo. I like the having 4 of in your sideboard, but having 1 of is just screams, I want this game to go long. And if I have a chance to resolve this spell, you're just going to lose the game. So I guess it's nice to have a I win button inside your deck.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to be a little bit more on the I win button. If I was on the polymorph plan, I would want maybe 2 or 3 copies so that I could consistently grab one. But yeah, his deck is kind of it is a prison deck in a different aspect than Peter's. Especially because of Ensnaring Bridge and the Thopters, meaning that it's very, very hard to actually attack through Harrison's board. So
yeah, interesting that considering how hard Peter Owen is trying to stop you from swinging with your creatures with the multiple spheres of safety and ghostly prisons and stuff like that. Like, it's surprising that you'd want to bring in something that has to attack to win.
Yeah,
but
that's
just me. I think you're just like trying to hit on as many different angles as possible so that your opponent can't prevent all of them, you know?
Yeah, it's also an interesting thing that like Emrakul, which seems like kind of maybe the clear target for this polymorph in this matchup, it actually dies to Oblivion Ring, which is something that Peter plays. Peter's sideboard actually is 1 Boseiju, who shelters all, 3 Silence, 1 Defense Grid, 2 Greater Oromancy, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Ensnaring Bridge, 1 Oblivion Ring, 1 Story Circle, which, spicy. And Peter kind of made a big show of bringing 3 Silences, which is an interesting choice because, yes, he has War of Invention. I can talk. And War of Invention and Abrupt Decay and some other like smaller instance, but the majority of Harrison's deck and Harrison's interaction is going to be through the combo, and those are abilities. So silence doesn't silence very much. It doesn't make it very quiet.
That's right. Definitely we're seeing pet cards from both sides possibly shrouding the viewer correct deck building because, I mean, silence is great in a combo matchup, but Harrison's just going to grind you out. Like, if you stop him from casting War of Invention, like if you're casting it in response or something like that, then, I mean, whoop-de-doo, like, Harrison's just going to cast, like, Abrupt Decay next turn or Tezzerator next turn, you know, it's, when you're trying to play, like, 20 spells in a turn, like, Grishol Brand or possibly even Ad Nauseam if you can time it right, that's great. But otherwise, a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like there is a critical turn for Peter to silence Harrison on. And so silence just doesn't feel like a super great card for the matchup. But also, I guess if he can get enough kind of incremental value and slow Harrison down just enough to cast his Enduring Ideal or Form of the Dragon, or give him enough to lock him out with a Blood Moon or something, which with Pentad Prism isn't going to be that great, he can get some momentum.
This is an interesting line from Harrison. He's done the pay 2 for Pentad Prism and then use that mana to cast another Pentad Prism. He's quite possibly he's either flooded with land or he just wants to turn on Metalcraft a little bit easier, but the double play of the Pentad Prism is definitely interesting.
I was going to say, I think there is some value for Harrison having artifacts on the field.
For sure.
Either through, playing a Tezzeret next turn, a turn 3 Tezzeret, and then being able to attack. Or, he does have one of the big improvise guys, which I cannot remember the name of.
Herald of Anguish.
Herald of Anguish, yeah. And that might be an incentive for him to play the extra Pentad Prism. I guess maybe he could use that to make some Thopter things. It's really not an ideal play, but it's definitely a reasonable play, given the context. And there's the Herald. So,
speak of the devil, yeah, here's where the improv was planning this a whole turn earlier.
Is it a literal devil? I think it's a demon.
It's definitely a demon. Herald of Anguish is a card that can also be polymorphed into.
Yeah,
which
is the other interesting thing, because if Harrison brought in Emrakul as we thought, he might his polymorph might be an interesting spinning of the wheel. I actually had a fun story in kind of a similar manner. I was playing blue-red Madcap Experiment in Modern for a while to test for one of the team games, and we ended up playing at a tournament. And the Madcap Experiment combo is you have Madcap Experiment, which is 3 and a red, and you keep flipping cards until you hit an artifact, and then you take as much damage as cards you flipped. And you also have Platinum Empyrean, which is 8 mana for an 8/8 artifact construct, I think. But it says your life total cannot change. And so you essentially pay 4 mana to go through your deck, get the 8/8, and it's hard for you to lose at that point because you often have some form of counter magic and you have blood moons to like slow them down, and that's great. And I realized
you also play it in decks that don't have path or are not expecting it, so they don't bring in artifact hate. So you just you're a blue red control deck, and then suddenly you have one artifact in your deck, and they're like, oh, I didn't bring in Ancient Grudges, so whoops.
Yeah, so it just can kind of steal wins, and for blue-red, it feels like you kind of need something unfair in order to, have a place in this meta.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's also a great sideboard trick. It doesn't take too many slots. You can probably do it with 5 or 6, and it's a transformational sideboard. Anyway, I was looking at the list the night before, and not even connecting it, I was like, why doesn't this deck have engineered explosives? That feels like it would be so good in this matchup. And I ended up playing against Affinity the next day after I put in the engineered explosives. And the first game, I ended up getting this big 8/8 and winning. But game 2, I lost very quickly. Game 3, however, I brought in the engineered explosives because it's great against Affinity, and then I Madcap turn 4, revealed 19 cards, and it was an engineered explosives at the top, which didn't even let me cast, and killed me at 19 life. And that is the problem with overcommitting on the combo plans. So
what can you do, honestly?
You can try to polymorph to get an Emrakul when you really need it and get a Herald of Anguish and question your choices. So you have to be really selective about it. And it's kind of a fun little combo wombo.
I'm not sure about Herald of Anguish in this matchup. This is a 7 mana 5/5 demon with improvise. So artifacts can help you cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating Myriad abilities pays for 1. It has flying, and then at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card, and you can pay 1 and red and sacrifice an artifact to give target creature -2/2 until end of turn. Not exactly what I would sideboard in this matchup, considering Peter's little empty-handed fairly quickly, considering it's a balls-to-the-wall prison-style deck that promotes having no cards in hand. And the creatures that you could sacrifice artifacts to neg 2 would be Simian Spirit Guard, and then maybe that's it.
Look, Harrison game 1 saw all those monkeys and thought it was the perfect play. I think more so the plan Harrison's on is play a huge threat early, which he did through the Pentad Prisms, and try to create a clock before Peter can establish himself. Peter's deck, if nothing else, is slow. He is playing a deck that costs 3 and 4 and 5 mana, so he doesn't do a lot for the early turns very often. So
for the extra bad beats, adding the sort of the meek Herald of Anguish, which is a big flavor fail, but we'll take it anyway.
Yeah, he's not very meek, is he? Big 5/5.
Peter Owen,
Literal demon.
literal demon. Peter Owen having the Luminarch Ascension on part of the battlefield, which allows him to get a counter each time he doesn't take damage in his end step, and then he can start making angels after it has 4, I think. So you have to spend 4 turns not taking damage. But he's just not being able to get any counters on it because there's an early Herald of Anguish. So look, I guess Harrison's proved us wrong already. Getting in for 5 again. I mean, Peter's at a theoretical 13 because of this Phyrexian Unlife. But if Harrison had a Abrupt Decay Maelstrom Pulse, it might be lights out for Pete.
I mean, yeah. Pete essentially has 3 turns uninterrupted by Harrison if the Phyrexian Unlife survives. But he could be dead as early as next turn if everything goes well for Harrison. So it's really kind of interesting to see these different decks have their different plans and have their different plan Bs. Because like Peter's plan B is to Phyrexian Unlife to give him enough time to, I don't know, cast a Form of the Dragon or something.
Yeah.
But the problem is with the deck is that he just has a hard time finding cards. There's not a lot of selection in his colors. And so he's just kind of at the mercy of his top decks right now, and he's also under enough pressure that he has to play whatever card he has because of the Herald. And I hope that Harrison... I mean, I think we saw that he brought in the Polymorph, right?
Yeah, I'm almost positive he did bring in the Polymorph because he knew that it was to wheel into Emrakul for the glorious win, but...
That's an interesting
we'll see.
grab by Harrison, the Ratchet Bomb. Just because
I like it a lot.
I don't feel like it does anything. Because by the turn that he is able to actually destroy the Phyrexian Unlife, like his opponent's gonna be dead anyway.
Yeah, right.
So I would have grabbed the Thopter Foundry and made that clock quicker.
Okay, that's reasonable. Yeah, sure. I think Harrison's definitely got that one-track mind of like, if I get rid of this Phyrexian Unlife, he might just be preparing himself if the Herald of Anguish goes away, but Pete's on 0 life, then the Ratchet Bomb will win by itself.
Yeah.
So Peter could stop him from attacking, but he's not going to be able to stop him from activating this Ratchet Bomb. So being a little bit more cautious, but I do like the line of getting Thopter Foundry and just turning this into one less turn, Take advantage of the fact that Peter Owen's not being able to do anything at the moment, and he's like a slave to the top deck, but I'm a bit riskier than Harrison, it appears.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest problem with Enduring Ideal is that you can essentially, like, if you get the right half of your cards, you can create a board state where you can just top deck and take your time just finding a lock of some form. But if you don't have the right part of your deck, and like in this case, Peter just clearly doesn't, right? He has the double ley lines, which aren't super valuable here, and he has the Luminarch Ascension, which, like, if he had a bridge or he had a sphere of safety, he would be in a great position. But because he doesn't have one of those things, he just has nothing, essentially. Everything on his side of the board essentially says nothing. It's a blank piece of cardboard, besides
pretty much,
the Unlife. And so I think the interesting thing, and I mean, I love attacking with creatures. That's an important part of my Magic ethos. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I really kind of like the idea of, if I'm going to play Enduring Ideals, to do the Nyx thing, the Starfield of Nyx, because it changes the game very quickly. And so there we see the Herald getting there, the Ratchet Bomb on 2, and
lining up perfectly, the Ratchet Bomb being 1 turn behind the Herald, just winning the game.
Yeah, so... interesting game and interesting decks. I'd love to see how they develop. Harrison is clearly, he's kind of as you talk to him, I guess he's just continuously building. Oh,
Yeah, he's been making
Padam?
Padim console of innovation.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah, very, very interesting choices. He looks like he just wheel into any three of those creatures. The polymorph. I realize that the one shot is maybe too good to hold up. But yeah, not sure about the Padim, not sure about the Herald of Anguish. But I mean, look, the results. I
think I like the Herald of Anguish just because, as we saw in this game, like at worst he can make a very quick clock, but
yeah,
there's not enough actual targeted like removal for any of his stuff that I think the like Shroud is relevant. But I mean, I also love the Emrakul plan. And then Peter bringing in kind of what you expect. The Stony Silences is very reasonable. And I like the Greater Oromancy. Is that the one that gives it hexproof?
Yeah, it gives everything Shroud.
Yeah, and the Ensnaring Bridge.
Other enchantments, which is important.
Yeah.
An interesting line by Harrison that we possibly didn't consider is that Padim also draws you a card every turn. It says the person at each player's upkeep, whoever owns. It's like at the beginning of your upkeep, if you own the artifact with the highest converted mana cost, you draw a card. So it could be an easy side in if you know that your opponent isn't playing artifacts, because you're always going to have the artifact with the highest converted mana cost. So you're basically like drawing an extra card a turn, which is definitely a good reason to try and go over the prison strategy by just drawing an extra card a turn. Well, this has been CBR MTG. Congratulations to both players. My name is Angus Mackay. I was joined by Frank Karamoritis.
Yeah, see ya. Thank you.
See you later.